Good afternoon, everyone. First, I want to say thank you to the Budapest Fashion and Tech Summit for having me here, and to all the speakers before. That was so informative. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. So today, I'm going to share a story with you about a brand that shifted its mindset 15 years within the business. A little bit about the brand. Mara Hoffman is the name of the brand. It's a contemporary clothing company. Mara founded this clothing company in 2000, right after graduating from university. She really started this by doing all parts of the business. So she was dyeing in her bathtub, she was batiking the garments, she was cutting the garments, she was sewing the garments, shipping them, selling them. She was all parts of the business, and was able to continue to grow the business and expand the business into an international brand. In 2010, I joined the company to oversee the design and production. And after years of aiming for more, right? More sales, more production, more employees, focusing on growth, Mara had a child and started to really understand the impacts of the industry. She was thinking about, what are the things that I'm leaving behind? What will my son have to deal with in his future? And we like to call this kind of the aha moment for the brand, when Mara really hit a wall. So she came to me, she sat down next to me with tears in her eyes, and she said to me, we need to either change this business or we need to shut it down. I didn't want the business to shut, obviously. And I saw here that I was being given an amazing opportunity to shift the entire mindset of a company, and I was really excited. Also, how fortunate I was to have the owner of a company wanting to make this change, it coming from the top down. And you know, we knew that because we'd surrounded ourselves with dedicated employees, that we would be able to make this happen. So how it started, how we did this, it really started with research. We needed to understand what were going to be some of our challenges. So we reached out to brands who had been in this space and who had been doing this successfully. We talked to, you know, the Stella McCartney, Patagonia, Eileen Fisher, the brands who really were leading this charge, and everybody was open to talking to us. And that was the first time in the industry that we felt this collaborative vibe versus this kind of competition that we'd always been feeling. So our first step, after we've researched and we talked to brands and we understood kind of what our largest impacts were, which was materials, right? So we knew that we had to start building out a material portfolio that aligned with where the company was headed. So we started to research different fibers that existed. We started changing the conversations that we were having with our suppliers. We asked them, did they have a recycled option? Did they have a certified organic cotton? What were some of the things that they were working on within the world of innovation that we could potentially work with? We started implementing different processes, something so simple, such as a material data sheet. And within that data sheet, we were asking for more information about where these fibers came from. What were some of the processes that these materials needed to go through? And then once we kind of understood what that material fiber portfolio looked like for us, a brand, and we had that kind of, we understood what we were aiming for, we started to think about our supply chain. We had relationships with our factories, some for over 10, 15 years. But what we started to understand was no longer did this map of the supply chain make sense for what we were really looking for. we needed to go deeper. We needed to start to really understand how complex our supply chain is. I'm going to share this image because I recently saw this and I love this. So the idea of something so simple, right? This homemade apple pie, just a few ingredients, but once you start to break down those ingredients and where they come from, you start to understand how truly complex that apple pie is. So this is kind of what it started to look like. I myself would visit our factories overseas and domestically in the US, and would go normally to the cut and sew factory, visit them, talk with them, maybe sometime go to the printer, but those trips really started to change. So that first trip in 2015 was quite interesting. So I had maybe 2 weeks planned for this trip. And on the first day, went to one of the factories and asked them about, actually went to one of the mills and asked them about a process that was done. And they said, oh, well, we don't do that here, we send that out. And I was like, well, when I need to go and see where you send that out to. And they looked at me and they're like, well, no one's ever asked to see that. And that kind of started to really unravel how much more time I was going to need to spend on that trip. So that 2 weeks turned into a much longer trip. And then after, you know, and not that we nailed our supply chain, that's something that we'll forever be working on. That is something that all brands should consistently push for, is that transparency in the supply chain. The next step was for us to really work with our designers and implement different design processes. So we needed to train internally how we were going to approach sustainability. So we needed to look at getting them to understand. So they had that material aspect down, but now it needed to go further. And we also, as a company, wanted to start looking at what were the products that we were putting out in the world. So we started to really dissect the collections themselves. Did we need as many SKUs and styles as we were working on? Did this one dress make sense, and would it be something that was timeless and someone would keep forever? So we narrowed down our collections. We made smaller collections. We also started looking at the time life of a garment. How long would this garment actually live? How many wears could somebody get out of it? So we started to implement testing to these garments to ensure that they would last. We also started looking at our fabric consumption. So when you make a garment, you use fabric, you lay the fabric out and you cut up the garment. We wanted to ensure that we were creating the least amount of waste within that process. We launched a core program. Within that, it meant that we would continuously be able to supply work to our factories. And we really looked at localizing our supply chain. So where was the raw material coming from? Could we ensure that the garments could be made in the same region? And that's something that we continuously look at style to style. We also needed to educate outside of just the design team. We wanted there to be company buy-in from all people in all departments. We started something called an action plan meeting, where we would meet monthly. And in that meeting, everybody could come, everyone was invited, and they could think of different initiatives that we could do within the office, whether it was volunteering to different organizations or creating different types of swaps or an upcycling class. And those got people excited and ignited them to want to make personal changes in their life. And from that, then we've built out a sustainability task team. This can't be one person in a company working on this. This needs to be across all departments. So we were able to do that. This with people who were showing much interest in sustainability and taking on additional remit and being able to help push some of these initiatives that we had wanted to work on. With all of this going on, though, it still felt like too much. The burden of putting out these garments, asking people to buy more, it still just didn't connect. So it got to this idea, this take, this make, this dispose. What was happening at the dispose level? Were our garments ending up in a landfill? What was happening to them? So, we weren't necessarily thinking about the recyclability in the beginning, but we were thinking about what could happen to these garments? How could we extend that life? And the more we learned, the more we understood for us that this meant circularity. For us as a brand, circularity really means reducing our waste, to decrease our dependence on natural resources, to support and build both technology and innovation business models that consider alternative futures for products other than turning them into waste. also while maintaining a viable business. So again, we went out there and we educated ourselves. We tried to understand what different companies existed that could help us. We found one organization in New York called Fab Scrap that was able to take our discarded fabric waste. We as a company even volunteered there so we could see what the actual sorting process looked like to understand how manual it truly was. We found Queen of Raw, who could help us find dead stock materials. We work with local NGOs and schools to donate our fabrics. And in 2017, we launched a compostable bag with TIPA, and then we partnered with a local organization in New York called Earth Matter for us to take back those bags and ensure that they got composted. And in 2018, we made our first commitment with the Global Fashion Agenda. This commitment made us really put the pedal to the metal to ensure that we had a take-back program and think about circularity more seriously. So through this, we founded a partnership with the Renewal Workshop. The Renewal Workshop takes discarded apparel and textiles and turns them into renewed apparel. We launched Mara Hoffman Renewed. We started hosting events where we would sell these items, and we were creating an opportunity for new customers and a new revenue stream. We're also really now looking forward to when we will be able to implement a peer-to-peer resale platform, something that I'm really excited for in the years to come. And something that we also really started to understand was that we needed to educate the consumer. Our customers had never demanded this from us. This wasn't a marketing ploy. When we started this, we really didn't even speak about it at all. We were pretty much led by fear. Would people wonder why we hadn't been doing this in the past? Would we get called out for what we weren't? And then we understood that that didn't matter, that we needed to lead with honesty. At the time, in 2015, we actually had some of our wholesale accounts who basically laughed at us and said, are you crazy to walk away from business, sustainability? Nobody cares. Now those companies are the companies who reach out to us and ask us to help guide them, which is really quite amazing. Oops, sorry, technical. So what we do is we educate our customers on our website. As you see in this image, we talk to them about how they can prolong the life of their garment, how to take care of their garment. We want to give them different ways of working with their clothing. Also, something that's really big for us is accessibility. We recognize that we are not a brand that is accessible to many because we're expensive. But there are other brands that are, and they can make these shifts. And so we are very vocal in this industry that it should not be the customer who demands this from you. We cannot wait for governments to step up and to mandate these changes. This is a private sector revolution that must occur across the entire apparel industry. We also must remember and acknowledge those communities that are most affected by pollution and climate change, the marginalized communities. And we have to ask ourselves, what is at the intersection of sustainability and social justice? At Mara Hoffman, we continue to explore this. We are focused on workforce development opportunities that could be created within this circular model. Wouldn't it be amazing if we could take back these garments and work with our local communities to have them repair them for us? How can we create jobs for those that need it most when we're looking at building out these future models? I want to highlight one awesome organization that we work with in New York. This is Custom Collaborative in the middle. That's the founder, Ngozi. This is a New York City-based entrepreneurship and workforce development program that trains and supports women from low-income and immigrant communities to launch fashion careers and businesses. You see Christina on the right. She's actually been able to start her own clothing brand, and it's really inspiring, and we want to continue to support organizations like this. We as a brand, every day, we continue to challenge ourselves. How can we be doing more, be doing better? Truly, collaboration is key in order for us to continue to ignite change and to move the needle here. We want to help scale innovators. We may not be able to do that on a monetary level. We're a small brand, but what we do know we can do is we can advocate for their work. We can even test their innovations. So what we do is we stay in communication with them. If they have fabric that they want someone to do some testing with, we'll work with it. We also like to connect them to other brands who are like-minded. What we know we need now is data for our total carbon impact. We need to understand our water and our energy usage. And these are things that we want to get to. As a small brand, it is hard, but we know that through partnerships, we can get there. We want to continue to inspire and, like I said, collaborate. We continue to show up at events like this to talk to you. If there's brands out there who want to learn more, we continuously ask you to reach out to us so that we can be of guidance to you and support you. We're a business that's been around for 15 years. If we were able to do this, then you should be able to do the same. There's no reason to think that there could be anything in the way from moving forward. So I think we're all going to learn a lot today in this summit. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of things that ignite you to want to do something different. Remember, even the smallest changes make a difference. A lot of times I like to tell people to go for the low-hanging fruit. If it feels too much and you're bogged down by the fear and you don't know where to start, that's okay. Do what we did. Start looking at your materials. How can you make some changes? How can you talk to your vendors? Ask them those different questions. Find out from them, what is it that they're doing? Call those brands. Again, I mean, honestly, we sometimes we like to say we stalked brands, but everybody wanted to help us and they wanted to share those resources. No longer is this the days of people being proprietary and not wanting to give you the information of who to collaborate with or who's the, where to find a textile recycler or who to find for your dead stock. This is the day of reaching out and collaborating. And again, you know, right now in this world that we're living in, everybody's reevaluating their processes. We as a brand are committed to changing. We want to move away from the traditional fashion calendar. We want to move away from this idea that winter jackets need to be on the sales floor in July and marked down by October. We need to move away from this concept of pushing more and more inventory, of projecting our sales and sitting on all of this volume and not knowing what to do with it. There's better systems, and now it's time for brands to take those initiatives. We've seen through this pandemic that this system is faulty, that there is time for change to be made. And we want you to do that, to think about what it is that you can do. You know, we've talked about localizing your supply chain. Is there a way to work with different communities near you to manufacture your goods? Is there a way to work with different materials that you haven't before that have less of an impact? I hope I've been able to inspire you and to change maybe some of the questions and the way you think about what it is that you're doing. I look forward to seeing you all in the panel discussion. So please join me over there now, and hopefully we'll answer all of your questions. Thank you so much.